Well, I think we're about 1 month into Donald Trump's 2024 presidential campaign. And to be honest, if I didn't just see a headline about his issuance of a few NFTs, I don't think I would remember that Donald Trump was actually running for president. As ridiculous as this NFT story is, which I'm sure you've all heard by now, it actually is the only thing I've heard about Trump since the night he announced. Now, what has the man been up to? What is he doing? Is he actually running for president? Is he serious? Where has he been, on, I was going to say Twitter. He refuses to come back to Twitter. He doesn't, he's banned off YouTube, banned off Facebook. I guess he could go on Hannity or something if people still watch Hannity. He certainly could go on Tucker. So where is he? Back in 2016, when Donald Trump was running for president, and actually before he was running for president, he was all over TV. He was constantly in everybody's face. For my entire life, Donald Trump was a staple in television, whether it be in the form of a game show like The Celebrity Apprentice, or before that, just The Apprentice. I remember going all the way back to that. I watched The Apprentice before it was The Celebrity Apprentice. And then, his cameos in movies, of course, everybody knows that. Home Alone 2, how he's been edited out of the film. But Trump always kept himself in the news. He always kept himself relevant. He always kept himself in the public eye. And that's part of the reason why it was so easy for him to, jump into a presidential campaign, because everyone knew who he was. He had 100% name ID. And sure, does he still have 100% name ID? Yes. But I don't think he's really that relevant to the culture at this point. And that's his own fault. Yes, the tech giants did everything they could to suppress his reach, but he doesn't need them. Donald Trump could make himself relevant if he wanted to. But I just don't think that he's really that interested. He knows how to market himself. That's been his whole career. That was his real strength. He knew how to make a name for himself and then how to leverage that name. But what's he doing now? How is he leveraging his 100% name ID? What's the first act that he's done as a presidential candidate? It's issue a bunch of NFTs, or mint, whatever they call them. He's jumping on the Beanie Baby bandwagon. He's hawking tulip bulbs. That's what Trump has come to. Now, if this were just, plain old Donald Trump, would I be surprised that he's selling NFTs? No, I would actually be shocked if, plain old Donald Trump wasn't selling NFTs. But this is the only thing he's doing. And he's running, supposedly, to be the next president of the United States. But he doesn't really have much to say about our contemporary politics or current events, except for when something regarding him or the 2020 election comes up. That's when Trump, decides to speak up and make his voice heard. But he doesn't really talk about anything that's going on right now. And even if he were, I still might not hear it, because Trump only seems to make appearances on his own Truth Social website, which, I'll be honest, I just don't have enough interest to join a Twitter competitor just to follow Donald Trump. That would be the only reason to join Truth Social as far as I'm concerned. So, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I just don't have the time. I don't want another password to deal with. And I think the vast majority of Americans are in the same boat. The only people who join Truth Social are Trump superfans who are going to vote for him in a primary anyway. So Trump is not marketing himself. Trump used to be on Fox and Friends, which is, not a show that I'm a fan of or anything. Never liked Fox and Friends, but he used to be on it once a week. And that was a consistent appearance for him. Trump could get on Fox News, which was bigger back then than it is now. But I mean, even still, if Trump was on Fox News once a week at this point, it'd be better than whatever the hell he's doing. He could get on there just as, hey, Trump, the real estate guy, and he could talk and say whatever he wanted. Fox friends would let him go on for, I think, like 10 or 15 minutes, once a week, and it was, it turned into the Trump show. And pretty much anyone would let Trump do that. In fact, Trump doesn't even have to go on somebody else's show. Trump could just start a podcast if he wanted to. Put it on his website. It would get distributed. It would get clipped out. If Trump was just putting out sound bites on a weekly basis, he doesn't even have to do it every day. But knowing Trump would very easily be able to carry, a daily podcast. 30 minutes is nothing for him. And it would be a way for people to actually hear what Trump has to say about things. He would have some role in her political discourse, which currently he doesn't. And you contrast that with somebody like DeSantis, who, as far as I'm concerned, is the only, at this point, the only other option in the GOP primary. There's no one else who's serious. The other Republicans who are even thinking about running for president are less serious candidates than Donald Trump. So I don't even really care to address them. But DeSantis is keeping himself relevant by engaging with our politics. And he has a pretty good platform to do that as the governor of what is now, I believe, the third largest state in America. Or I'm sorry, we're fourth. No, we are third because we overtook New York. So anyway, DeSantis now, you see what he's doing with the going after Pfizer and Moderna for, let's just say, Fauci juice efficacy. I think that's a YouTube safe way of putting that. And this, of course, is an issue that Donald Trump can't even touch with a 10-foot pole. Trump refuses to back down on his vaccine maximalism, and that is something that turns off a large portion of his base. But hey, even still, even if Trump wanted to maintain that, hey, the vaccines are safe and effective and they're wonderful and everyone should get 6 booster shots, he should be out there saying it, explaining it. And maybe, you know what, maybe he could convince some of his people and get them over. Or maybe if he recognizes that the vaccine stuff is a losing issue, maybe he just focus on other things. But anything to inject himself into our politics. Remember, Fox, which still holds an outsized influence over Republican primary voters. Fox has been all in on Team DeSantis since the midterm election. And they have been using their platform to increase DeSantis' name heighting nationwide. And so the fact that Fox, at the very least, and I think other conservative media sites, are inclined to promote Ron DeSantis as a person, his actions that he's been taking to put himself in the news makes their job doing that just that much easier. And it makes Trump's neglectful campaigning all the more worrisome from his perspective, or at least it should. Remember, nobody else is officially running for president except for Trump. So presumably, if somebody like DeSantis decided to run for president, officially, he would be doing even more than what he's doing right now. But he's already more relevant, as far as I see it, than Trump. Trump, I mean, what is he going for? The nostalgia vote? People saying, which is, not always a bad strategy to say, hey, when I was around, things were pretty good. Now things are pretty bad. Wouldn't you like things to go back to the way they were when I was in charge? It's a decent argument. But you still have to engage with whatever the issues of the day are. I watched Trump's announcement speech. That was the last time I've seen him. It'd been quite a while since I'd seen him before that. And I don't remember him really hitting on anything that relevant. Maybe he had, passing references to things, but nothing that stuck in my head. A month later, I don't remember what Trump's running on. But at this point, he is a former incumbent president. He does still have that, so I do think he still benefits from that incumbent advantage to a great degree in a primary. So if the primary were held today, I think by default, most people would just select Trump because that's the one that they know, and vast majority of GOP primary voters were quite content with Trump as president. But the more this drags on, the more they're presented with another option that, in fact, is better than Trump on an issue that is of particular importance to a great percentage of the base, that being the jab issue. The people who care about that a lot put a lot of stock in it. And the fact that Trump stood by, and even though he didn't directly endorse vaccine mandates or lockdowns, he did help facilitate them. He did give them a little bit of cover, because he, as a representation of the opposition to the left, he took the position of vaccines are safe and effective, they're wonderful, everyone should get them, absolutely, except, unless you're a total idiot, but, maybe we shouldn't force them by law to get it. And when that is sort of the far right position, it's a very short leap from that. The moderate position becomes vaccine mandates. And then sort of the more far left, which, I don't even like using this term, it doesn't make sense in this context, but, bear with me. The far left position then would be anyone who doesn't take the jab, is sent to Auschwitz. So you see what I mean there? There's not a lot of room between Trump's position and the people demanding vaccine mandates, way back when. And there's a lot of people, I'm sure, who remember being fired or having their job threatened or getting dishonorably discharged from the military. And they're not going to look favorably upon Trump because of that. And this is just one issue. This is just one issue that Trump happens to be on the wrong side of in relation to his base. And in order to overcome that, he's going to need to make the election about something else. He's going to have to find something that he can latch onto, like the wall in 2016. That was one of his big things. And so everybody who cared about immigration, automatically pretty much became a Trump supporter because he was the one who was talking about it the most, who seemed to be taking the issue more seriously than anyone else. So likewise, I think anyone who is concerned about sudden deaths, sudden adult death syndrome, the SADS, and Big Pharma in general, I think those people are going to gravitate towards DeSantis and become DeSantis voters by default, if indeed he does run for president against Trump in a primary. And so even though Trump, I still see, having a clear advantage and is the clear front runner for 2024, that's a long way away. 2024 is, I guess technically not 2 years away from now. We're at the end of 2022. It's a year from now, and then, about 2 years till a general election. When is the primary usually decided? Maybe around, I think the latest would be August, because that's when the convention is. But, let's say mid-2024, year and a half max, year and a half. A lot can happen in that time. And so if Trump just takes his voters from 2016 and 2020 for granted, which I think it appears he is doing. In fact, he's trying to grift off of them by hawking them worthless Trump NFTs. He's engaging in a get-rich-quick scheme, which is so beneath him as someone who is supposedly a billionaire. And, I, as someone who was never a huge Trump fan to begin with, I was also not, and still am, I'm still very skeptical of everyone, of DeSantis. But, back in 2018 when DeSantis won, I didn't expect him to be, particularly great governor. So I'm just trying to look at this objectively out of, who is doing themselves a better favor when it comes to campaigning. Um, but there are a lot of Trump bitter clingers whose, election analysis when it comes to a primary comes down to, hey, Ronnie D, he is the choice of the establishment. So it's that plain and simple. So anyone who likes DeSantis, you're supporting Mitt Romney, and so therefore you have to back Trump. It doesn't matter if you think that Trump is worse, on actual issues. It doesn't matter if Trump is a big jab guy. DeSantis is by definition, more of a pro-jab guy, no matter what Trump says, because DeSantis is, a deep state tool. And there is a point to be made there. DeSantis is not a totally free agent like Trump was. DeSantis is not going to self-fund himself. The usual GOP donors are the ones who are going to fund DeSantis. He is going to be beholden to the donors. But what good is Trump's supposed independence if he doesn't exercise it? What good is Trump not being owned in a literal sense by the donor class when he still does what they want? When Raytheon comes, banging down his door and saying, "Oh my gosh, you can't end wars in the Middle East. Then we will sell less bombs because we'll have less, Yemeni children, less orphanages to blow up if you end any wars over there in the Middle East." And then Trump just comes out and says, "Okay, we won't end those wars." Why? Oh, well, because Trump wants to, save 6 jobs of people who, put the they screw the warhead onto the missile at the Raytheon factory. And so Trump just, he signs off on the continued massacre of thousands of people. And I'm not even using this example to say, well, DeSantis would be an anti-war president. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I think that's DeSantis' biggest weakness. I think that, as much of a disappointment as Trump was on wars, he was a much more pro-peace president than I think DeSantis would be as of right now, because DeSantis has kept his mouth shut on a lot of stuff, which is somewhat telling. But getting back to his strengths, DeSantis has a good feel for what the base is thinking, and I think for the general zeitgeist. I've even seen him get out in front of issues, like, for example, vaccine mandates. He had a big thing against vaccine mandates before they were ever proposed. And so I think that DeSantis is a craven politician, but I think that he's a very skilled one in the sense that he understands that the best way to win people over, to support him, in order for him to elevate himself politically, is to actually give the voters what they want. I think that DeSantis, unlike, the likes of Kevin McCarthy or Mitch McConnell, I don't think that DeSantis has contempt for his voters. I think that he is, at worst, indifferent towards his voters, and, he's just interested in doing whatever he can, to get people to like him, and, turn out to vote for him. At best, he's actually somewhat sympathetic towards his own voters. Trump is only sympathetic towards himself. And he has a very skewed perception of reality. He cares very much what the New York Times says about him. That impacts him personally on a deep psychological level, which is not healthy. Trump used to be much more plugged in to the base and to the zeitgeist when he had some people working for him whose job was to consume conservative media, aggregate it, and then give Trump reports on what people like, Alex Jones was saying, or what, what's his name, Mike Savage, or Rush Limbaugh, and other people and other things. He'd read the Judge Report, and so he would get a feel, at least somewhat through these people, what the common Republican primary voter was thinking and what they were listening to. And so he was heavily influenced by the general, right-wing milieu. And once he became president, that became less and less so. And once he got banned from Twitter, he pretty much was disconnected from his voters altogether. He put himself, it was a self-imposed exile, because even though he was kicked off Twitter, he could have found other ways to reach his voters. Chose not to. DeSantis has done the opposite. This is not, again, I'm not here to be a special pleader for DeSantis. I wouldn't endorse him. I would be very, very nervous, if he was elected president. I think that if we could fast forward 6 years from now and DeSantis, was just ending his first term or something like that, I probably would have a lot of terrible things to say about him. Just like I did with Trump, or just like I would with anybody. But if you got to compare apples to apples and say, gee, who looks like a safer bet at this point from both a primary, electoral standpoint and from, I think, a not screwing us over once they get into office standpoint, I think that Ronnie D is making a good name for himself. That doesn't mean that Trump is dead. It doesn't mean that Trump is out of the race. Far from it. But he's not making a good effort. He's choking bad. And if he doesn't turn things around, I think it's Quayton's for old Donald J. So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.